All right, let's talk about something you see on job sites all the time. Multiple cranes, right? Swinging these massive loads around. It's pretty impressive to watch, kind of like a ballet of steel and muscle.
Yeah, definitely a ballet with some high stakes, though.
Yeah, one wrong move and it's game over. And that's why today's deep dive is so important, especially for our listeners out there. You know, the safety professionals, the crane operators, those of you working towards your crane operator license. We're talking multiple crane lifts.
Couldn't agree more. The more cranes you add to the mix, the more things can go wrong.
So to make sure things go right, we're diving deep into OSHA Standard 1926.1432. It's all about safe operation of multiple crane lifts.
Think of 1926.1432 as your playbook for navigating these really, really complex operations safely. And it's not just some dry regulations. I mean, this stuff is important.
Yeah, this is like the difference between a smooth operation and a potential disaster.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with something this complex? I mean, 1926.1432, it's pretty dense.
Well, you got to start with the foundation, and OSHA makes that crystal clear right from the get-go. We're talking about planning. Before you even think about hooking up a load, 1926.1432A says you absolutely need a detailed plan in place.
Okay, a plan makes sense, but I'm guessing not just any scribbles on a napkin will do, right?
Right, and OSHA gets specific here. They say this plan has to be developed by a qualified person.
Wait, a qualified person? What does that even mean in OSHA speak? Like, is it just someone who's been operating a crane for a certain number of years?
It's a little more than that. It's about real expertise. So a qualified person, according to OSHA, this could be someone with the right credentials, you know, like a degree or a professional certification in the field.
Okay, so like a certified engineer, someone with like the official paperwork.
Exactly. Or it could be someone who's demonstrated that they can actually solve problems related to crane operations.
So someone who's been there, done that, and can prove it.
Right, and that means a solid track record backed up by knowledge and training. I mean, you wouldn't want someone wiring your house who'd never touched a circuit breaker, would you?
No way. Definitely not. So same principle here. You need a pro in charge of the plan, someone who knows the ins and outs of crane operations inside and out. But what if this qualified person, while they're putting the plan together, realizes they need like an engineer to double check things? Is that allowed under OSHA, or are they stuck going solo?
Great question. And OSHA actually addresses that directly in 1926.1432A3. They understand that sometimes you need to bring in extra brain power.
Makes sense. Two heads are better than one, especially when you're dealing with something this complex.
So if the qualified person says, hey, I need an engineer to look this over, the employer has to make that happen. They have to make sure that engineering expertise is available. It's about setting the operation up for success.
OSHA's really emphasizing that no shortcuts approach, which I got to say is reassuring. But even with the best plan in the world, you still need someone to actually execute it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how does OSHA address that part of the puzzle?
You're absolutely right. The plan is just the beginning. 1926.1432B is all about putting that plan into action. And that's where the role of the lift director comes in. This person has to be both a competent person and a qualified person.
Whoa. Hold on a sec. Now we've got competent person on top of qualified person. Is this just OSHA playing word games, or is there actually a difference?
Oh, there's a huge difference, and it matters. A qualified person focuses on the lift plan itself, but competent person is broader.
Broader how?
So a competent person is like your all-around safety hawk. They have to be able to spot hazards on the job site, the obvious ones and not so obvious ones.
Okay, so they're like a hazard spotting ninja.
Exactly. And they don't just spot them, they have the authority to shut things down until those hazards are taken care of.
So it's one thing to know the rules, but it's another thing to actually have the power to enforce them.
Right. So our lift director needs to be both. Understand the plan, but also keep a super close eye on the entire work environment. It's a big responsibility.
So they're like the conductor of an orchestra. Got to make sure all the musicians are in sync, but also got to make sure the concert hall isn't about to collapse on everyone's heads.
That's a perfect analogy. And just like a conductor has a pre-show meeting with the orchestra, OSHA requires a pre-lift meeting led by the lift director.
Okay, so before any lifting happens, everyone gets together.
Yep. And I mean, everyone involved has to be at this meeting, no exceptions. That's 1926.1432B2.
I can definitely see why OSHA is so strict about this. You've got massive cranes, heavy loads, often in tight spaces, one missed signal, one miscommunication, and it's a recipe for disaster. It reminds me of this story.
It's, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, you know, juggling chainsaws blindfolded on a unicycle, one slip up, and it's, well, you can imagine.
Yeah, Not a pretty picture. But okay, this pre-lift meeting, it sounds like it's where the rubber really meets the road when it comes to safety.
Absolutely. It's not just going through the motions. This is where the lift director, really takes charge, explains the whole plan step by step. Everyone needs to know exactly what they're doing.
So everyone's on the same page, no room for misunderstandings.
Right. And the lift director has to make sure everyone feels comfortable speaking up, if they have any questions, any concerns, anything at all. That's how you build a real safety culture.
So it's about giving everyone a voice, not just telling them what to do. And speaking of resources for safe professionals, crane operators, all our listeners working towards that operator license, we got to mention Safety One Source, right?
Definitely. Safety One Source, they're a fantastic resource for anyone involved in crane operations. They've got it all. Training programs, all the latest OSHA regulations, just a ton of resources for making your job site safer.
Yeah, and it's not just about, ticking the boxes and following the rules. They actually have a network of experts, like real people who've been there, done that.
It's like having a mentor on call, someone you can turn to when you're facing those tricky situations, like those multiple crane lifts, right?
Exactly. So big shout out to Safety One Source for helping create a safer industry for everyone. Okay, let's recap what we've learned from OSHA 1926.1432, specifically about these multiple crane lifts.
Sure.
First things first, we need that solid plan.
Right.
Developed by a qualified person, no shortcuts there.
Right.
And then we've got our lift director, who's got to be, a competent person and a qualified person, basically a safety superhero.
Exactly. Don't forget that pre-lift meeting either.
Right, where everyone gets together, goes over the plan, understands their roles, and feels comfortable speaking up.
And having resources like Safety One Source, it's like having a secret weapon. It just makes everything a little easier,
Makes you feel more confident, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But even with all that, I think it's important to remember that OSHA, it gives us the framework, the rules, but it's up to all of us to really create that safety-first culture.
You got it. It's about going beyond just checking the boxes. It's got to be a mindset, a way of life on the job site.
Well said. Now, I'm curious, for all our listeners out there, what extra safety measures do you guys use on your sites for these multiple crane lifts?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do that goes above and beyond what OSHA requires?
Yeah, we want to hear from you. Maybe you have a special way of communicating when it's super noisy, or maybe you're using some new technology to keep things extra safe. Whatever it is, share it with us on the Safety One Source platform or social media.
Yeah, because you never know. Your idea, it could be a real lifesaver for someone else. We're all in this together after all. It's pretty amazing to hear how much people are doing to make these operations safer.
Yeah, it really shows you the power of, sharing those experiences. And Safety One Source, they really get that. They give everyone a platform to share those ideas and make things better.
Well said. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We started with OSHA 1926.1432, all the ins and outs of the regulations.
The importance of having a good lift director.
Yeah.
Making sure everyone's communicating clearly.
And of course, having those extra resources, like Safety One Source, that can really make a difference. But, at the end of the day, it all comes back to creating that culture of safety.
You got it. It can't just be about following the rules blindly. It's got to be a way of thinking, a way of working, everyone looking out for each other.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us today and sharing your expertise. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime. Always happy to, talk about safety. It's what I'm passionate about.
And for our listeners out there, remember, safety is a team sport. Keep learning, keep sharing, and most importantly, stay safe out there.
That's right. We all want to go home safe at the end of the day.
Well said.
Fact.
Thanks again for listening.